Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Medical Qigong Practice. My name is Mary Francis, and I am one of Yin Li's Qigong students. So let us start our warm-ups. Opening up to the left, I'm going to try to mirror you. Our feet are parallel. We're allowing them to melt a bit into the earth. And softening the knees, relaxing the low back, relaxing the shoulders, softening the jaw. Tip of the tongue is touching the roof of the mouth. We're inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And the very top of the head is reaching up into the sky. Taking the hands into loose fists. We're going to start swaying from side to side. Gently letting the fists tap the torso, tap the hips, the waist, the low back, wherever they may land. And then as the tissues start to open up, loosen up, as your back starts to warm up, go ahead and increase the momentum a little bit, never moving into pain. We're trying to open the channels, release the tissues. We're not trying to create more stagnation. So we want to stay nice and relaxed. And then gradually we're allowing that lead arm, that lead hand to travel up the torso towards the opposing shoulder. Coming back down. And taking the momentum away, releasing the hands. Coming back to the center. Widening the stance so we can open up the channels in the lower half of the body. And then widening the stance further. I'm going to reposition myself, starting from the hips, traveling down the inner aspect of the legs. The lateral aspect of the legs, coming back on up towards the hips and the glutes. Once you get to the hips and the glutes, sliding that left foot a little closer to the right, maintaining hip width shoulder width distance. Maybe tapping with a little more momentum into the glutes. And then backing off as we come up underneath the rib cage, breaking up the kidneys, breaking up the low back. Saying good morning to the kidneys and the kidney energy. Placing the palms of the low back, circling down the sides and up the spine. Once you've done 9 circles, resting the palms at the low back, closing the eyes. Using the mind's eye, the mind intention, inhaling through the nose, guiding the breath and the chi to the low back, allowing it to fill up with energy. And exhaling, allowing that energy to flow within the body to wherever it's needed. Inhaling, guiding the breath and the chi to the low back and the kidneys. Exhaling, allowing the chi to flow freely to wherever it's needed. Inhaling and exhaling at your own pace. Allowing the mind to relax into the breath. Allowing the body to relax, the tissues to soften. And allowing ourselves to come to this moment in time. And when you're ready, gently opening the eyes, letting the arms come back down to the sides and closing. We're working on our Golden 8 series today, 1 through 8, opening for our lung and large intestine exercise, reach for happiness. Inhaling and exhaling. In and out. Inhaling and exhaling. In and out. Continuing on at your own pace, allowing your breath to draw the movement forth. And getting ready to close. Closing. Our second exercise, the Archer exercise for heart and small intestine. Opening. Inhaling, exhaling, in, and out. Continuing on at your own pace, allowing yourself to flow from side to side, utilizing the breath to guide the pace of the movement. And getting ready to close. Closing. Opening for a third exercise between heaven and earth, the spleen and stomach exercise. Inhaling and exhaling. In and out. Inhaling and exhaling. Allowing the mind to relax into the exercise by staying with the breath. And getting ready to close. Closing. Opening for our fourth exercise, the Sanjiao exercise. Turn and look back. Inhaling And exhaling. In. And out. Inhaling. And exhaling. And getting ready to close. Closing. Our liver gallbladder exercise, twist and release, opening. Inhaling. And exhaling. In. And out. Working at your own pace. Allowing the breath to harmonize with the movement. And getting ready to close. Closing. Our sixth exercise, the kidney and urinary bladder exercise, bend for help, opening. Inhaling. And exhaling fully. Inhaling. And exhaling. In. And out. Inhaling. Exhaling. And inhaling back to standing. And getting ready to close. Closing our seventh exercise for the rain channel, the conception vessel, energy punch. Inhaling, exhaling, in and out, in and out. Getting ready to close, closing. And then our last exercise today, the energy jump exercise. It's in two parts for the kidney and urinary bladder. Part one, opening, inhaling as we let the breath elevate us. Exhaling as we fall back to the earth. Inhaling. Exhaling. Continuing on using your own breath as a guide. And transitioning to part two, inhaling as we swing the arms up, exhaling as we let them fall down. And then gradually letting ourselves come back to stillness. Closing. Bringing the feet and the palms together, transferring some of that wonderful chi that we've been cultivating over the past half hour to the palms. If I'm looking over to the side, it's to check the time. Placing the palms at the lower dantian. Traditionally, men place their left hand first, women place their right hand first. And then I'm not going to mirror you here. We're all going to travel up our right and down our left, drawing 9 circles. We're gathering all of that wonderful chi into the lower dantian, using the mind intent, the mind's eye. And once you've done 9 circles, go ahead and travel in the opposite direction, up the left and down the right. We're concentrating the energy. Caramelizing the energy. Getting ready for it to store. Resting the palms of the lower dantian, closing the eyes, inhaling through the nose, guiding the breath and the chi to the lower dantian, allowing it to fill up with the energy. Exhaling, allowing that energy to settle and store so that you may use it throughout the rest of your day. Inhaling, using the mind's eye, the mind intent, to gather the energy into the lower dantian. As you exhale, allowing that energy to settle and store. Breathing in and out at your own pace. Thank you all so very, very much. It's so much fun to practice with you this Thursday morning. Can we please take over and answer our questions and tell us about Chinese medical Qigong theory?
Hi, good morning, everybody. All right. So thank you very much, Mary Frances, for wonderful practice this morning. We're now on day 36 of our daily practice. So we're in our 6th week. You've been joining us since the beginning. You're almost at, well, we're past the halfway point for that 60-day or 2-month mark of daily practice. So that's a really important mark to get to in terms of everyday practice and really feeling the energy, that connection. So really continue. We're more than halfway there. Okay, so today, as we're talking more about yin and yang energy, I want to talk about, actually I want to talk about my personal experience of how I got introduced into this whole concept of yin and yang. Growing up as a kid in Philly, so I grew up in Philadelphia, right in Center City, and you know, I like any other kid then, I had my Twinkies, I had Captain Crunch cereal, I've had way too much sugar, okay, and potato chips and all that kind of stuff. And my mom would say, "Oh, that's too much heat," or "That's too cold," or you know, basically I didn't understand what these terms are, but these terms are actually terms related to yin and yang, right? We talk about opposites. So too much heat, that's too much yang, okay? Too much sugar turns into heat. Hamburgers, French fries, potato chips, a lot of that is heat. So as a kid, you know, we tend to have a lot more yang energy, so we tend to burn it off. But as we get older, it's a different story. But that's how I got introduced into this whole concept of yin and yang, is through food. In Chinese culture, especially Southern Chinese culture, food is a very central part of the culture. Like if you walk anywhere, people are always talking about food and the energetic properties of food, like, oh, this one's really warming, this one's really cooling, this one really nourishes your yang, this one really nourishes your yin. So you can just like kind of, you know, listen in and hear people talk about like what foods are good for what, and you know, depending on the season, those conversations will change. So I was really lucky to get introduced into this whole concept of yin and yang from a very practical standpoint, which is food, because food, we all have food every day, and food is very much medicine because it's something that you can really just take every day, right? Either the food is going to be very nourishing and good for you, or it could be, you know, junk and be not so great for you. So it is really important to pay attention to the food that you have every day, because that's going to be a huge part of how you take care of yourself from a daily standpoint. So in terms of food, yes, we categorize some foods as hot and cold. So I'll give you some examples of that. And again, hot and cold, you can interpret into hot meaning yang, too much yang, cold meaning yin, too much yin. And there is also this difference between too much yang and too much heat, and too little yang and too little heat. Okay, so it's a little bit complicated in terms of how, like in Chinese medicine, we treat it very differently. It's not, you know, having too much of one doesn't necessarily mean you have too little of the other. Okay, like for example, if you have too much yang, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have too little yin. You may still have a very normal and healthy level of yin, but too much yang. Or conversely, you can also have a normal level of yang and not enough yin. And so in that case, you want to nourish and boost your yin. In the other case, too much yang, you want to be able to take that down. So you want to take foods that cool it. Okay. So we'll talk more about that, but let's get back into foods. So some examples of foods that may be hot or yang. In the animal category, lamb is very warming and hot, okay? Chicken is also it can be very warming and drying as well. So those things, if you have too much of that, you can tend to generate a lot of internal heat. And heat can also be interpreted as inflammation in your body, okay? Conversely, on the cold side, I think one practical thing that I'd always like to use an example is watermelon. Okay, we all like to have some watermelon in the summertime because we can feel it's very refreshing, okay? But it's also very cooling. So that's a food. So internally that helps cool down your system, as opposed to the other foods like lamb, we tend to eat more in the winter time because it's very warming, okay? So it's really important to pay attention to your constitution and know that, like, if you have a predisposition to being too much yang, you probably want to avoid those heaty types of foods. Conversely, if you tend to be more of a yin type person, you probably want to have a little bit more of that warming food to get things moving. And you want to avoid too much cold things. So when we say cold, it could be something that, like watermelon, you have at room temperature, but it's cooling for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be temperature-wise cold. For example, raw foods tend to be more cooling as well. So this is some ideas of foods that you can do to change your health from an everyday perspective. I'm going to try to put up a chart so it gives you a better idea in the future of what foods tend to be cooling and what foods tend to be warming. But this is like a tool. So this is knowing the properties of foods, for example, is a great tool to understand what you can do every day to adjust that balance that we talked about, that yin and yang balance. So just something to think about. And when you're eating, okay, so most of us, we've been practicing Qigong. So intuitively, you're going to be able to feel what foods are hot and what foods are cold, okay? So I don't want you to cheat too much in terms of looking it up because there are references on which foods are hot, which foods are cold on the internet. But I want you to also practice your intuition and what your body is telling you, okay? Because your body will respond. Obviously, the most strong response if you like throw up or if you have some loose stools, okay? So that's more extreme, but most of us can feel some subtle differences, like something's not quite right. So what is it? You can sort of inquire into your body about that. So remember that your body is quite wise and it knows a lot more than we know in our conscious mind. So this is giving you an opportunity to listen and to learn from what your body is telling you. So food is quite fascinating in that way.